fill out a comment card with your question and hand the card to a deputy. Your participation is welcomed and appreciated. At this time, we are going to start with, let's see, we'll go ahead and do the, before we do the agenda review, we'll do the board comments and discussion, but we're going to go ahead and start with our guests. So we'll do our strategic plan update.
All right, awesome. As the chair said, we had the start to the school year since our last meeting, and you know, I always talk about the start of school year two ways. One, I always talk about it in a romantic sort of way because it's a rebirth every year, and you get to do things over. So if you had something great happened last year, you get the chance to replicate it. If something happened you didn't want to have happen last year, you change all that. So no other job really has the cycle of what we do in the school system. So my favorite story from day one, I was out at Oakley Village Elementary. Ms. Clark and I were holding the front door to the school. Parents came in with their kids, you know, following safety protocol and all that kind of stuff. And I happened to notice this parent with two kids walk in the door. I talked to them and engaged them as they went back. But when they left, coming out, they passed by Ms. Clark and I. They turned around, they gave each other high fives, and they hightailed it to their car. And I thought, oh, they're happy that their child came back to school. So the start of the school year, always a rite of passage, and it was off to a great start. Of course, the start of the school year means the start of new routines, right? You know, one of the challenges at the start of the school year is always traffic, and everybody trying to go to the same spot at the same time, right? So until people figure it out, my dad drove us to school. There was 10 of us. So Dad did the driving because Mom was busy with 10 of us. And so I can always remember he had the 2-day rule, was he drove us the first 2 days. And then after that, we either rode the bus, and elementary school was close enough to actually walk to school during those days. So I know families are adjusting to the start of the school year, new routines, perhaps new schools if you went up to a junior high or up to high school. Everybody's kind of adjusting. We're on day 12 now. So usually it takes the first 2-3 weeks before everybody kind of settles in to a routine and everything levels out. So with that in mind, I'm going to start off with a strategic plan and just give you an update. You know that, let's see, Bonnie. Maybe, maybe not.
Is it on?
Looks like it's on. We'll do an old-fashioned pointer.
We can do that.
Okay, here we go. So you know, each year, you know, in 2003, the board passed a strategic plan. The strategic plan's in front of you. It looks like this.
It's working now, sorry.
Okay, awesome.
Just give it a second.
Looks like this in front of you. You know that each year we go by, and this is the second year of the strategic plan. We do an update each and every year as to our progress, and then we readjust it. But remember, this was done over almost a year process to get to this point. I'll just bring you down memory lane. We had 3 different community meetings for all of our stakeholders. We had surveys of our parents. The board then took a look at all the information and said, okay, these are the 5 areas that we want to focus on. One, of course, is student success, and then talent recruitment and retention, development and retention, family and community engagement. We talk about that all the time. Safe, positive learning environment, fiscal and operational efficiency. So just to kind of quickly go through this, you know that the format is there's a goal, but then there's strategies to meet the goal, and you can see those strategies listed, and then there's accomplishments. I would just point out to the board, because I know the board would want to go back and read this, but when you get past the point, it lists out like 2 pages. I'm giving you 3 little cherry-picked items on this for the sake of time, but this would be a good place to say, hey, I wonder what we did in the area of student success. You can see a whole listing of it there, much more in depth than the 10-minute presentation I'm giving you here this morning. So this would be a good document for you as you're out talking about this to the community. When you talk about highlights, You can see that chart, it should be very familiar to you, the fact that that's successfully an A school district, again, 93% of our schools A and B rated. You can see all top 10 in English, math, science, and social studies. And of course, I would kind of add to it, because my dad would make me do this. He would say, yeah, but you know you're not number one in everything. My dad was kind of like the proverbial Debbie Downer. Like, no matter what you did, it was always, you can always do one better, right? And so I think we recognize that, but by golly, you got to take a look and say, all right, that's a pretty good record. Could we improve? Of course we can improve. Everybody can improve, right? You don't have to be bad to get better, right? And so when you look at it from that way, you can see a couple things I kind of cherry picked out. CTE, we went from 1,900 industry certifications to 3,200. That's a huge jump. I thought that was worth coming forward with that. Also, 43 of our schools were trained in FIN, which is the Florida Network Scheduling Model, prioritizing students with special needs. About 21% of our students are special needs students, right? That's a huge chunk of people. And what we found is that by having intentional scheduling, by putting them first, because they often have the most complex schedules, by the way, it helps meet their needs. We've had great growth there. How about this? We're in the top 10. If you separate the data for ESE and you just take ESE students in Clay County and compare them to the ESE population of every other county, we score in the top 10 of every statistical category. So, you know, I think what I try to emphasize in the student success piece of that is that we actually look at students by subgroup, and there's ways of looking at data differently. ESE, being 21%, is a very important group of people, and it takes special care for ESE population. So Doc and her group do a great job there with that. It's a very difficult space to operate in. And then the opening of the Health Science Academy at Fleming Island. So on to number 2, okay, talent recruitment, development, and retention. Again, this is an organization of people. 82% of our budget is people-related services. You have to do a good job at recruiting and retaining folks. You can see a picture here of, I believe that's the Coppergate crew, because it looks like Mets and a few other people out there. You can see some of the work done there. Over 800 teachers, One Clay Leadership Academy. Also our career fairs. They went to 30 different career fairs. You can see the support that we try to provide teachers in the classroom related to that. You have to do things for the people that work. We're in a people organization, we're in the people business. Right, so this is a very important goal. That's why it's number 2. Family and community engagement, done a lot of stuff there. You can see the strategies. I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible through this. But the board had a presentation last month or the month before, I forget what month that was, where you saw how many people were involved, volunteers. See 9,600 volunteers, how we established a volunteer program, increased security of that, where we have level 1, level 2 volunteers. Where level 2 are fingerprinted folks, because those are folks that potentially could be alone with a student. 420 plus community partners. And then you can kind of see how we've engaged through our new Raptor program, as well as Aptogy and our new One Clay app, the new website, with a lot of stuff. I think you'd go, if you read each one of them, it would be like a trip down memory lane for you of various meetings throughout the year. And again, I'm just cherry picking 2 or 3. Promoting a safe learning environment. Of course, nobody would doubt the importance of that. You can see some strategies there. There's 3 cherry picked items out of a couple pages of stuff, which the panic button system, we decreased our assessor numbers by 7.5%, which I thought was impressive, and as well as a process for tracking attendance and implementing interventions to remove barriers in that space. And then you got to talk about fiscal and operational efficiency. You can see 5 strategies there, and then I just cherry picked a couple. We did receive $2 million in grant money from the state in order to establish an advanced manufacturing technology and expand the already robust CTE programs that we have. You saw the completion of the 32 classroom wings at both Oakleaf and at Lake Asbury. And a little thing, notice that that's just like one sentence with a couple words. Reviewed and updated all board bylaws and policies. That was a tremendous project. I'm gonna say, might have been the biggest project I ever worked on. If it wasn't for great people like Kelly who kept us all organized, we wouldn't have been able to do that in a 1 year time frame and all of that. That doesn't mean we can't revise some more, but that was a big lift, so kudos to you guys in that area. And again, we focus on these 5 areas. You'll notice that each agenda item ties back to that, because this is the beacon of all work that's done in the district. So with that, that's the presentation. You have it there. It has much more detail within the packet of information you have. So I'm going to turn it back over for the next.
Next up, we have transportation. Welcome, you guys. I know you guys don't get to come out much and speak to us, but I know there hasn't been one board member that hasn't got an email, a phone call, or question about what's going on, so it's good to have you guys here.
So I wanted to, real fast, I know you guys, y'all seen me, you know me, been around. I wanted to introduce someone who is a huge asset to not only me, but to our district as well, Ms. Roxanne Charamonte. She is our supervisor of transportation. I want to give you a quick background of Roxanne and just where she stands at in transportation, because you guys see me all the time. So Roxanne does a tremendous job within transportation. Currently right now, she helps out with our HR side of things. She helps with getting our folks onboarded and in training. So a few things, I kind of want to go backwards here with her. Roxanne comes to us from a logistics background. She was a former director on that side. So she brought a lot of experience to Clay County, has helped transportation grow, has helped me tremendously too on that side. Roxanne kind of has a background with me with Clay County. She started as an admin support assistant with transportation, worked her way up when area manager, and now as supervisor too with the district. So she has done a fantastic job, within that side. This is why she is here too as well, because she's a huge help within our department. And helps our staffing too on that side in the world of HR and training. So a couple of things before I'm going to pass the torch over to her to kind of go over some detail. You've got the phone calls, you've got the emails, you've got all the fun stuff on that side. It has been a historic, wild ride, I will tell you that side. We have fielded all the crazy, all the fun, everything in between. I joked with Mr. Broski at one point in time and said, we decided for the year 25-26 we were going to take the Band-Aid and just rip it off of everything. We had a lot of new, we had a lot of growth, we had a lot of, if we don't do this, we're going to be in a different boat of not being able to transport students. So when you look at our figures, and Roxanne's going to go over that here shortly, but when you look at our figures, we had to make that move to that 1.5 to 2 mile aspect of things because our numbers were growing so high. And I know, I say this all the time, and folks from the school side of things always say, we're not seeing the same growth that you're seeing over in transportation. Well, the kids are still there. They're there, and parents are having to go backwards on the side of things of, hey, I used to work remote. I no longer work remote anymore, and now I need my kid to have transportation. Hey, I didn't work. I was a stay-at-home mom, a stay-at-home dad, and now all of a sudden I'm having to go back into the workforce. I need transportation. So even, and again, like I said, we'll go over the figures, we left out last year transporting close to 15,000 kids. We are currently almost transporting a little over 15,500 kids today, even with that 1.5 to 2. So I know I seen you guys back in, I'm gonna say May-ish, around that, and I said, if we don't do this, this is where we're going to be. And hello, here we are. We're there. We predicted that. Our routing team did a fantastic job routing those on that side of it. And we predicted those figures, and here we are with those figures. If we had not had said, hey, 1.5 to 2 and reduce some of that transportation, we would be at planned double backs, and kids would be definitely late to school every morning, and they would be sitting at the bus loop in the afternoons. So this was something, we were proactive. We were proactive as a board, as a district, and we did well on that side of things. There's always a piece of this when you have growth, you have growing things. Anytime change happens too, change comes into play, and we have those pains that we say, ouch. And one of those was Chipmunk and just our transfer of things. We had a brand new app, we had brand new tablets, we had a brand new GPS system. And folks, we didn't have a choice but to roll all of this out because it was failing last year. So in rolling this out, we had a lot of parents that the weekend before school started, and I'm talking Saturday and Sunday. And when I say a lot of parents, roughly 6,000 to 7,000 parents decided to jump on Saturday and Sunday and say, hey, I want to register my kid for transportation. And here's the thing, transportation was working Saturday and Sunday to register those kids and get those ready to go for buses. Drivers had already run their dry runs. They were ready to roll for Monday morning. What we were not ready for was the crashing of the software, because the software was not ready for almost 7,000 parents to get on and say, hey, look at us, we need transportation. I don't know if I want to say I'm proud of this, but we crashed it for almost all of the state of Florida, as far as that goes. I got calls from other directors going, thanks, Crawford. Thanks, Crawford. You managed to crash the system for us too, and here we're down. So St. Johns County was one of them. Osceola County was one of them. With that, it's not a new manner that we know parents wait until the last minute. I'm guilty of doing this myself as a parent. But it caused us a little bit of heartache on Monday morning. I promise you, I did not wake up at 3:30 Monday morning and say, let's crash Bus Planner and let's crash the app and cause us all kind of natural disasters Monday morning. Roxanne and I did not do that, we promise. But we fielded them, we got it situated, we got the routes moving in the right direction they need to be moving. I will tell you, Bus Planner has been tremendous in the avenue of jumping on things and helping us navigate this new. Literally the first day of school, they had a plan of action in place within 2 hours of me calling and saying help. So they got that rolling. And I'm gonna say, in lack of better words, the only thing I can tell you is that Saturday, Sunday, mass amount of registrations is what broke the system. And we've had to work through that. So it created some bugs, it created some issues we were not necessarily prepared for on that side, because over the summer we piloted this, we ran it through multiple platforms. We had multiple folks that were tracking the summer school kiddos. Everything ran smoothly. We were like, it's gonna be good. The app was working well, the ridership piece on scanning was working well, and we were ready to roll out with that side of it. So just know, as far as Bus Planner goes, they have been working with us hand in hand. We've got solutions on the table to make the year better, but growth comes change comes growing pains, and that's where we're at with it right now. So my philosophy with this too is that we rip the Band-Aid off for 25-26. It's going to make the 26-27 and therefore on out much better for transportation and for the district on that side of things. Just kind of want to talk to you a little bit just about the app in itself. Ms. Ellis and I wanted to put like a video for this so you could see it. It was difficult to get the screenshot of that one, but I wanted to kind of go into detail. It's very similar. I know we've had the complaints on it. The complaints have stemmed from that crash of Saturday, Sunday. If the app was working the way it should have been, and we didn't have that crash, all of this would have been a beautiful little dream that would have rolled out and the parents would have been fine. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but it's going to give you the estimated time of arrival just like the previous app. I had at one point 16 kids routed to my phone and was following all of those 16 kids throughout the district. I had them in Keystone, Green Cove, Orange Park, every area that we could, and was getting 16 different notifications all throughout the day. And it is reporting, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Some of the things that parents had some complaints on that I know filtered through your inboxes was the buses not reporting. When you install all this new software over a summer, you're gonna have glitches. You're gonna have wires that didn't work. You're gonna have tablets that fail. Brand spanking new tablets of that. But that's what happened with this too as well. So the bus wasn't reporting on day one because there was a faulty GPS wire that connected. And while we try to do dry runs, we try to do all the things before school starts, there's going to be those kinks, and that's exactly what this was. We got a faulty wire, we got a faulty tablet, our team jumped right in, they got that replaced, the bus is now reporting. These tablets and these wires too sit, I call it an easy bake oven whenever the summertime hits. So this is bound to happen whenever it's sitting out there on that compound lot with 110, 150 degrees that's running in that bus. Things are gonna happen to where we have to jump back on and replace these. So that's a natural piece of it. And we think that's why one of those tablets did fail. It just, that particular one wasn't ready for the summer Florida heat. So we replaced that and got that back up and going again too on that side. The good part of this app, and I told you guys this before, is that it is directly connected to Bus Planner. It's no longer communicating between 3 different softwares. So every night before, we had to make sure these uploads happened. And what would happen, Synergy would get a new student, it would go to Bus Planner to Synovia. And by the time it hit Synovia, it was confused as all get out. It couldn't operate. Now with this one, it is going to go from Synergy to Bus Planner. It's going to navigate like it's supposed to. The downloads are going to happen, but we're not having to wait for 3 different softwares to communicate with each other. So we already see that happening, and that's doing exactly what we anticipated to as well. So we don't have those, last but not least, we don't have those failed data transfers that are there. When these kids enroll, we're seeing it live. Whenever our routing team routes these students, we're seeing that live there too as well. Kind of ending on this piece of it, and I want to pass this off to Roxanne to give you all the other good detail. I want to say kudos to my routing team. That routing team consists of a coordinator of routing. It consists of 3 individuals who route students. So that's a team of 4. I have a supervisor that's over that too as well, but they're also assigned other duties. When you have 7,000 kids that get routed over a Saturday and Sunday, that's a lot of students for 4 individuals to route. So if you get an opportunity to drop by and add a girl, add a boy, any of those routers and that routing coordinator, they busted their chops to get these students routed over almost a 3-day time period. And when I tell you, when Monday hit too, Bryce and her team did an amazing job over at operations helping us field phone calls. We were saying, hey, kid needs to be routed, and within seconds, that routing team, they had those kids routed, and they pushed them through. We could not have done our jobs without that dedicated routing team. And no more than, call-outs happen. Y'all heard me fuss about call-outs. We've had, multiple platforms of call-outs already happen. Those routers are covering routes plus driving buses and making sure that our kids get from point A to point B. So those are our superwomen, our supermen of Clay County as far as transportation goes. So when you get an opportunity, shout out to those individuals because they did a jam-up job with our district. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Roxanne to get the rest of the detail.
So the next slide here is just about the logins for the app traffic. So he talks about it being overloaded, shutting down, day 1, day 2. This is just a visual to kind of give you an idea of how many people were logging into that app, how many people were logging in and registering to that app. As you can tell, as we get into first day of school, that first week, it's some pretty high numbers at the very beginning of it. As we come into week 2, we're averaging 3,600. We don't have data yet for this week, but I would assume we're going to probably stay average to that 3,500 number. So that's how many parents, how many subscribers are on this app for Clay County. So as far as our ridership, so that's another hot topic. Our numbers are up. As Mr. Crawford mentioned, we've got parents that are going back to the office setting. They are kind of getting rid of some of the remote jobs, so that opens up the need for transportation. So as we come into where we're at now, we're at 5,500. We're kind of creeping up to the 16. I can tell you this week alone for week 3, we are bringing, all of our drivers are coming into our area managers. They're bringing their route changes. So a lot of what you may be hearing, whether it's in your voicemail or your inbox, or even our parents, why aren't they on time? My app is saying this, my driver is saying this. There's changes that have to be made, and that's normal. That is a normal back to school feature. So they're bringing in their route sheets, they're meeting with their area managers, and they're going through updating times, who's actually riding, who's not riding. So we're gonna see some difference in numbers as well as we come out of week 3. Staffing updates, so as far as with our drivers, we do have 14 open allocations. but that doesn't mean they're gonna stay over very long. We've got lots of drivers in the pipeline, whether it's in our HR pipeline, whether it's in our training department as well. So right now I've got 8 drivers that have already gone through the training process, and they are eligible for their contracts, so their allocations. So of that 14, as I finish up August, 8 of those are gonna go into their contract status. We had 3 driver trainees start last week, so they're in their training process as well. Our training takes about 4 weeks, so if you come in with nothing, you're about a 4-week process from start to finish. I've got 3 that are in HR processing, and of course we talk about our 14 that are in screening. That could be interviews, that could be safe driving history reports, that could be getting reference checks. So those are kind of still in the works. They haven't quite made it to our compound yet. Our monitors, I've got 12 open allocations. Again, I've got 7 that as I finish up August, they would have met their 30-day mark, and they will be ready to go contract as well. We'll be putting them into those allocations. Mind you, this is different from open routes, so these are just allocations. I've got 1 monitor that started this week. I've got 6 that are in HR processing. Don't be alarmed by the 44 monitors and screening. Those are ones that we do from our Indeed posting. So we reach out to them, we ask them if they can come in for an interview, kind of do the vetting process. So we have 14 that are in our bucket that we still have to vet. We still have to get through them, so they may not all make it. So as far as staffing, I feel like, we're looking good as far as getting us into September. I think we're gonna have a different feel there. When we get into open routes, so that open routes are, what are those routes where I have routers that are going on those buses and covering those routes? I've got some of my area managers that have to jump on those buses and cover those routes. Even our office staff that we have that maybe they were a bus driver, they've come in and work as admin support, something like that. They still uphold their CDL, so thank goodness we can use them. So in our open routes world, right now I've got 4 ESC routes that need dedicated drivers. I've got 3 ESC routes that need dedicated monitors. So go back to the previous slide, I've got people in the pipeline, people in training. These should be cleared up as we get into September. I have 1 McKinney-Vento we need a dedicated driver. It's a non-CDL, so we have a van for that. And right now I have one of our office staff that's dedicating that position right now. All of our regular ed or general ed routes are filled. So I have drivers that have been assigned to those routes, contracted to it. So right now our focus is ESC.
I didn't say that this year, Roxanne said it, by the way. Anytime I say that, something normally happens. It wasn't me that said all our routes are filled. I want to put that on record.
Currently. So again, as we've mentioned, any open routes that we have are being covered by office staff. That this is aside from the ones that we're all getting hit with the back to school bug, right? Getting over something myself, they're kind of dropping like flies right now, so we are scrambling every morning, crossing our fingers at 5 a.m. going, okay, who's gonna call in, who's not gonna call in, who's well enough to come back to work. Again, that's normal, even in the school setting, you experience that too. Everybody's congregating back together. We really do appreciate everything you guys do. Really the big push for help. I know at the county level, there, Ms. Bryce, she's come up with a lot of good creative ideas as well. People are jumping in, helping with the phone calls, helping with the spreadsheets. I know there's a stigma out there that we don't answer the phone. I promise you we're answering the phones. I even took my own personal phone. I walked down to dispatch one day and I called it and realized there was a little bit of a bug in the system. The delay in which it took for it actually to hit our phone. Our wonderful IT department sent somebody down and they were able to work through that piece of it. So I do hope that not only you, but also the community, they start to see that difference when we're able to pick up those calls a little faster. And we've got other options that they can reach out to us, whether it's going on the website, filling out that form, or they're welcome to, leave us a voicemail if we're not available. So we appreciate everybody's help. Thank you.
Any questions?
Well, thank you, Roxanne.
Yeah, sure.
You've got big shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
But I really want to say, Randall, you have made such a difference. You inspire the employees to do a great job, and we know what it was like before, so thank you.
Well,
We can't pay you the $1 million, but seriously, you've done a wonderful job, thank you.
And I want to say a few things to all of you while you're standing up there. Just to piggyback off of what Ms. Clark said, you know, when you take a visit out there, you see how crazy and hectic it can be. And I know you guys work your tails off, but under your leadership, you guys have trained people to multitask and to do multiple different jobs. You guys have been able to work under crazy conditions and survive it because of your leadership, and knowing that somebody can route bus routes and answer the phone and do dispatch and do all of those things. So I appreciate that, because you don't see that everywhere. I also want to say something about technology with the app. I know parents get frustrated, especially when technology doesn't work. And I know that that's been a push for us as a board, is to make technology work for us. You know, like a lot of our systems, we were a little outdated, not doing, you know, up to par. So thank you for bringing that change to transportation, because it is convenient for a parent to be able to watch things if they're at work and their kids are getting on the bus, or, you know, whatever, making sure that their kid is on the way to school. So I think it's the small changes that people don't realize, which are huge on our end, but are small and very impactful, because when things don't work like that, it is a huge inconvenience, and I don't think people realize just how positive that change is when it is working. And then lastly, I just want to emphasize to the board that, like Mr. Crawford said, if we can go out there, visit our bus drivers, let them know, and our dispatch team and all of that, let them know we do appreciate them. And I'm not saying that other departments or other areas of our district are not important and any of that by any means, but they are who get our kids to school safely every day. And I think understanding that transportation isn't necessarily ran like a school. It is different and should be treated differently when we're looking at FTEs and we're looking at jobs and what they're doing. I just want to put that on our radar as a board, that it is a business within a business, if that makes sense. So it's completely different. I know I don't have to tell any of you that, but I just wanted to say that out loud and say that we appreciate everything that you guys have done under your leadership and what you've done to change things around and boost morale and get positions filled, because I know it's difficult when you have a turnover and you're competing against other counties and other businesses with CDLs and all of that. So anything we can do as a board, please let us know. I know you guys have been under the fire just because school started back, and I know it's crazy this time of year anyway, but anything that we as a board can do, please let us know.
Thank you.
And with that, any board members want to chime in? Or?
I just wanted to, District 4, I just wanted to thank you for what you're trying to do for the kids who lived on 218 without sidewalks. I have talked about this when I was a teacher for 5 years. I talked about this as I've been on the school board for the last 3 years. Some people from the district went and walked and saw the bike trail on the side of 218. So I want to thank you for everything you have done for them and everything you're trying to do for them. It's a real struggle for me when we start this equity thing, like grouping everybody into same categories, when everybody's not in this, every community is not in the same category, you know? And the struggle's real for the people out there, and it's very dangerous for their kids, has been. And I just appreciate you trying to figure out what we're doing out there.
Absolutely.
And just to piggyback on that statement too as well, I've also tried to emphasize to some parents out there, I know we're doing courtesy riders this week and next week, and with the new change, there are going to be a little bit of speed bumps along the way, as far as like finding what kid should be in a, labeled hazardous, who shouldn't be. And so I know when it comes to our kids and safety, you can't replace our babies. So I get the struggles and the challenges there, but you guys are doing a really good job trying to find those kids and find them routes. So I also want to say thank you for that as well.
Kind of to piggyback off that too, just so you guys have the right tools and your toolbox there to divvy out to parents when they come to you. That is the process that'll start up to kind of navigate that piece of it. So right now it's, all right, does bus A have, is it maxed or is it to the point to where we can stick kids on it? Parents kind of just, they either decide to send their kid on the bus or they decide to have their kid walk, whichever one that chooses to be, or take them in. So now we get to look at and say, okay, where's our numbers? What are our numbers doing? So, in the coming weeks, we're going to be looking at that. I want to emphasize that is not it doesn't happen overnight. This is a team that, again, you have 3 routers and a coordinator of routing that is pushing this avenue of it. So it's not going to happen. It's not an overnight fix. It's going to take some time to get those numbers back in. We are located in Middleburg and we serve 40+ schools throughout the county, which means I have 5 area managers to go out and get these counts to as well. So 5 area managers to the tune of all the schools that we have. The math doesn't math on that side. So it's a challenging avenue. We've done it for years. This is not a new concept, folks. We've been doing this for quite some time. So it'll be one though that we start ironing this out. We, 3, 4, and 5, we get our numbers and we start figuring out where we can stick these kids. It's not we told parents too, this is not necessarily a no for futuristic. It's just I can't do it right now. Let us get the numbers and we'll iron those out. So encourage them to continue putting in those courtesy ridership applications. We are viewing those. We are, pushing those through. And believe it or not, we're answering phones. They're there. And it's one that you're on the phone with a parent and there's 5 more blinky lights going off and you're like, okay, it's gonna happen. But it's happening, it's getting there. But tell them, encourage them to submit those forms, go through the right process and procedures there. And transportation's gonna be on it like we always are, and we'll get them ironed out.
So Roxanne, just to clarify, you said this, but I just want to make sure everybody knows, as the routers go by and they make alterations to the route, then parents would be notified. So the most accurate way, if you're a parent out there thinking, well, my bus has been 15 minutes late consistently over time, you'll eventually get the new time.
Right.
But for now, the route tells you exactly where the bus is. And that's the most, because they're trying to figure out all of those nuances.
That's gonna be the original information that was created before they got their route sheets.
Right.
Almost 2 weeks before
Prior
school
to.
started? Yeah. So what they're seeing in the system is as kids are being added, the system is adjusting it, but there's also real life information that the drivers can only provide to us. So we'll utilize thrill share as well. So as, say, route ABC gets updated, that route in our room, we will send a communication out to say, please be aware, this has been updated, go take a look at it. There shouldn't be a dramatic change. I feel like physically what's happening is what will reflect on the route sheet. We're just trying to get the data to match up so that the Chipmunk can actually feed it correctly to the parents.
Can I ask a question? So next year, I'm sure you guys are tracking this, it won't be all those people at once. They would have, maybe if they had a kid in the system this year and they bust, does it track them the next year? Or does everybody have to re-register every year?
So,
Everyone will
I'm
re-register.
gonna hit on that one, just so we kind of set the record straight for that. Yes, they are going to, every year it's gonna be a registration piece, but what can we grow on? We can communicate better. I'm just gonna lay that out on that piece of it. We've gotta communicate better. So the team is already working on avenues to say, just as soon as spring break hits, we're gonna start pushing this out to parents. We've met with other districts, we've went to these conferences, and believe it or not, those produce a lot of information for us too, to see what other districts are doing. And this piece of it was, they start early, and they start pushing this out. And parents are gonna get sick of hearing it, but it's the key of transportation that I'm one of those too, you see it 3, 4, 5 times, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do that. I got it, transportation, I'm gonna register my kid. And that's what we need to do for this upcoming school year. So we need to start early. The reason we do registration yearly is to see those figures and what we can plan for. The more we can plan over the summer, the better off we are for day one. And that's kind of the key part there. So yes, they will register every year. They'll put their kiddo in. And anything that changes too, like in the world of ESE, we get that information at that point in time too, so we can make those changes appropriately for those routes for the new school year.
But communicating earlier. think is gonna help us into the next year.
Yeah.
And if y'all need help with that, let us know, whatever you guys need, so
Absolutely.
we appreciate it. All right, is that it?
All right, thank y'all. We
They
appreciate
get
all
to
your
go-
support.
They get to go answer some phone.
Yeah, right.
All right, next up, we have our student information systems presentation.
It'll be a little bit of setup. I don't think I've had my chance to introduce myself to the board. If you've been around for a minute, you might remember me. I'm, interestingly enough, I'm my predecessor twice and my successor twice, and I'll let you try to figure that out for a second because I'm actually from Clay County. I graduated from Middleburg High School, became a teacher there a few years later, and then fixed the principal's printer. He assumed I knew something about technology and made me the school tech, and then from there I went and came into the district office where I helped work on all kinds of things IT, and then I got another job, it was kind of a neat opportunity, and then I came back, and then I got another job, and then I came back, so this time I'm just staying, I guess. Too much work, right? And so I do want to introduce myself, like I said, my name is Dwayne Weeks, I'm the director of IT at this particular point. This is David Haas, he is the supervisor over our systems group, and today what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of take an opportunity to, as I've been here a few months, so it's been July 1, so it's weird, right? Like it's a little bit of deja vu because I've been here a few months, but I've also been here for a while. I feel like I'm pretty kind of sort of understanding of the culture here in Clay County, being from here. And one of the things that I know that has happened in education, especially over the last few years, is education had become very flexible in how it deals with things, especially student information. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about kind of a recommendation or a proposal that we think would benefit the district. And one thing that I will say is that it used to be you buy a piece of software and it would be like 20 years or so. As you know, like through phones and everything else, software updates quite a bit. There are a lot of different ways that you can take. But one of the things that we are looking to do is we are looking to kind of go into some core values as far as what our student information system does. So I've got a quick presentation and then kind of got a little bit of a recommendation. And so real fast, if you are not a tech person, one of the things that kind of give you a little heads up on what a student information system for is, it's a sprawling system. Every time you hear the word Synergy, basically you're talking about a system that does all kinds of things from the registration process to grade posting, to a grade book for a teacher, to potentially forms that could include things if you get kind of sort of grand in your designs like MTSS and all these other things. It is basically a massive data system. But one thing in the state of Florida is that in the state of Florida, something that is very, very tricky is we have very, I think I said very enough, complicated state reporting in Florida. The state, the DOE, requests reams of data, and from that data, they will derive our accountability, things like our school grades, but also our funding. And one of the things that is a little bit of a cardinal truth about state reporting in Florida is you only get paid what you invoice for through all this data submission. The state will definitely chase you down if you make an error and it's on their side. They will not chase you down in reverse, if you get what I'm saying. And so it is incumbent for districts to be able to maximize their funding, right? And so I know a lot of times when we think about some of these pieces of software, it can sort of sound like, okay, that sounds optional. This is such a core system. This is, really we have two core systems in IT, the one that pays you and the one that gets us paid and handles the student data. And so those are the two core. This student information system, like I said, though, really impacts parents, students, teachers as well. And so one of the things that's interesting about a student information system, most parents' first contact comes at the registration process, which we spent the last 2 months studying as I kind of sort of returned. And there's a lot of other information that we will take a look at real quick. But again, I just want to sort of emphasize how important this system is and how complex the reporting is. So with that said, on to the next slide. One of the things that we have looked at is that as Synergy was, so Clay County had a very innovative deal with Synergy in the very beginning, and it goes back a couple of administrations. But they were kind of sort of the first in Florida to some extent, and then another district followed. And so one of the things that was interesting about that is that at one particular point when I was first here and we were on Focus, we were like the fourth district to go on it. And so anytime that you're kind of sort of picking one of these student information systems or one of these new systems, you're kind of sort of reading the tea leaves a little bit and making your best prediction to some extent. Well, one of the things that we've noticed is that even since the last few years is that Focus has gathered a lot of momentum, and because of the way state reporting works, the state almost listens to Focus more than, I don't want to say this too much, but like it almost like they listen to them so much, and they're almost like kind of a, I would say slightly an advisor on it. If there's a reporting question or so, like because they're now out of the 67 districts, there are like 50 districts, almost 51 districts, that have gone to Focus. So the vast majority, since this has changed, have slid to Focus. And in some ways, that kind of sort of makes sense in the history of Focus. They're based in St. Pete, great town. And one of the things that they do is because they have been in Florida, they understand how complicated Florida is. I will say this, is that other systems in Florida just seem to struggle with just the weight of the reporting, to be honest with you. It's just a lot to keep up with. And there are some states where the state reporting is almost like submit, like for your funding, an attendance sheet for the day, like a couple of attendance sheets. That is not the case in Florida. And so realistically, it being that tough environment, we want to make sure that we're as competitive as possible. I do feel like there's sometimes some safety in the flock, if you get what I'm saying, where you have other districts to collaborate with, other districts to kind of have conversations with. And I think that's very, very important, because one thing that is true as I kind of sort of watched education, public education evolve a little bit, is we have to be extremely competitive. Like, we have to look at anything that could be potentially a barrier, and we have to work to streamline it, remove it, whatever it is. That's true of funding, like I said, that's true of registration, and I know it sounds weird, and we'll talk about this in a second. For some people who work really, really hard, some of our heroes, some of our unsung heroes in the district are record secretaries. Like, if you've ever seen that position, it is a tough position. Something that may save somebody 20 or 30 clicks might not seem like that big of a deal, but if you were doing that all day, over and over and over again for all year, like, it adds up into real time. And I think that's the other concern that we have to look at too, right? As budgets may contract, how can we streamline some of these processes, make a more efficient workflow, and make this make more sense for everybody involved? So being kind of a competitive soul these days, like, I want us to be the best, and I want us to be able to actually go in and have processes that hopefully sing for the people who are working on it. So the next one real fast. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these kind of sort of 4 values of what I think a student information system should bring to the table. The first one is just straight up efficiency. Like, anything that, now listen, some of the processes, if I'm going to be honest with you, the registration process is mostly dictated by the state. You have to have an immunization record. And an immunization record doesn't sound like it'd be something terribly complicated. It can be, to some extent, especially if you're coming from out of state. And we know in Florida we have a lot of people coming from out of state, right? But how can we streamline that where we can? And it's always a war of percentages. You'll never get to 100%. I think people kind of get a little bummed out when that is the case. But if I can take 30, 40, 50% off somebody, that is a win, right? And you can't turn down, just because you're shooting for the perfect, you can't turn down the good or the better, right? And so I think that's a big deal. That goes with process improvement too. One of the things about a student information system conversion is you basically take a look at every process, put it back on the table, and you examine it. Now, one thing that I do believe is that I do believe Focus is a tool that is flexible enough for us to be able to start to rework the processes. I think that's very, very important. And we'll take a look at some of that in a second. But it is going to be very, very important too, at the end of that, for us to have data really quick to inform decisions. I would never say it's decision making by itself. It's supposed to inform decisions, but the truth is that data piece and the ability to get reports, we have done some surveys on the existing student information system. One thing that came up over and over again in that system is, I wish I could just go get the data myself. Like, I wish that there was a way for it to be simple on that front end where I could get the data. We have great instructional leaders, we have people who really do understand the data, but sometimes they may have an idea or something that would really work for their school environment or their department, and it would just be great if they could go ahead and do that. And then something that I am a huge fan of, we'll probably have, we used to have like an air horn. Every time we found money in the last place I worked, we blew the air horn. It's a little weird in an IT place, I'm not gonna lie, like programmers get a little freaked out after a while, we just do it behind you. But like, I guess what I was gonna say is that it is important for us to maximize funding and literally gain every dollar. And I'm gonna tell you, like, again, because you are self-invoicing, that means that your data has to be very, very accurate, but you almost have to sort of seek within the rules advantage in how you can get that data. And so real fast, what I'm going to do is the next slide is I'm going to talk a little bit about the cost of what the project could potentially be. Now listen, one of the truths is that generally as a rule, if you are going into like looking at a new student information system, you usually pay for one while you're building it, and then you have to pay for the other because you're still on it, right? But one of the things that we started having very early conversations about is that there's these systems these days are almost year-to-year subscriptions. And so talking to Focus, one of the things that they agreed for us to be able to do is they would not charge us, if we did this, the subscription cost for the first year while we're building the system out. I will tell you that what you're probably potentially looking at the end of the recommendation may be a 10 or 11 month conversion. That's a doable conversion, but I will tell you, to be honest with you, it's like the more you double bill, like it can be a problem. We've gotten that subscription part. They will send people to help us do the conversion, and in reality, it's only fair to pay people for their work, right? However, I did talk with them yesterday, and there's some flexibility about maybe pushing that as this may be something that, as the budget is kind of tight, we would have some flexibility in pushing at least half of those costs off to the next fiscal year. And so it wouldn't come as a surprise bill or something of that nature, if you get what I'm saying. And of course, we still have to pay the subscription for Synergy. But if we do the analysis over 5 years, this would include the assessment module that we have in Synergy, the forms builder that we have in Synergy, kind of a very like-to-like product, then we would be looking over 5 years of a cost savings of roughly $577,000. Do we have to put it in an asterisk? This is estimated based on what their cost increase looked like. I suspect that's what it would be. It seems what their language would be, but that is an estimate just based on past history. It could be higher. It doesn't seem like it would likely be. But regardless, that would be over about $500,000 in cost savings. However, the one thing that we can't necessarily estimate, and I want to be very clear about, is what the cost is if we have more efficient systems, because people's time is also money. And so one of the things that is just not quantifiable is that my hope is that, and the one thing I didn't say, and I've got exactly one left in me, and y'all are about to redeem it, is this will be my 3rd conversion. And so, and you only have so many of these in your life. I'm going to be honest with you. So with that said, y'all are using the last coupon, right? If this goes down. But where I guess I'm going is that every single time we have seen a boost in the efficiency, right? Like it's like processes that used to take a little bit longer start to shorten up. And so with that said, that's just hard to quantify, right? But with that said, and here's the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about what our goals would be. One of the things is that, like, we're still going to have the immunization requirement. There's nothing I can do about that. There are still going to be proof of residency and things like that. But I do believe that we can make the registration process simpler for parents. And so I think there's some integrations that I'll talk about in a little bit. But I also think, too, that it's maybe a potential reworking of the way we have the registration process here locally. Like, I think there's the opportunity for us to make this. I'll tell you this, for most parents, that's the first contact they are going to have with the school district. And because the environment is so competitive at this particular point, I am a firm believer that that should be a welcoming experience, right? Like, and I think that is something that we can work on the design of the process, but then also how we do this. And again, I think there is something that is kind of exciting. There's this thing, it's almost sarcastically named, called FASTER. It's not. It's the state of Florida's record exchange program, and it is done on an old mainframe, and it is a very difficult system, if I'm just being honest with you. But because Focus has been able to leverage its fact that it's in 50 of the 67 districts, they have basically started to circumvent that system with record exchange possibilities between other focus districts. And so now what you're able to do is, instead of having to go through this other system, which has very mixed results due to just how complicated and how error prone it is that we could, with a Duval, for example, which is a kind of a close, relatively close, we would be able to, if they opt in and we opt in, to be able to exchange those records. And I sort of think because of the just size and scale of where Focus is in the state of Florida, that would be a huge thing, because if you think of the record transfer process for a parent, that's another hurdle for them to have to clear, and maybe that's something we can electronically speed up. State reporting should be simplified. I will say this, is that one of the things that we are kind of excited about is that, like, it would be very, very good to get with a student information system that is there at the state conferences, like really understanding and having the weight and responsibility of these 50 districts to just understand what changes. Changes come in state reporting like crazy at this particular point. They used to never come in like September or October. Now they come sometimes a week before survey 2, and then we're like scrambling to get it done. Because right now we are the sole district on the current student information system. We just don't have the leverage, and to be honest with you, I don't necessarily blame them for it. They lean on us for sometimes the interpretation. If you've ever read any of these rules, they are like a riddle to some extent. And so it is nice to have other districts to be able to chirp in, as well as a vendor. And I would make the argument that they have somebody there who's probably one of the most smartest people in state reporting, and I think that helps for now. And I think also too, this is also important for us to be able to predict FTE. Like, one of the things that we're kind of sort of looking at, some of the tools that would be available in this, is that get to where we can predict where this stuff. Now, the budget part is always a trick, because like sometimes the numbers on the accounting part may slide, but being able to predict the FTE piece is a big deal, because again, we're just trying to maximize funding. Real quick on the next one too, again, I think I've said it, I'm going to sort of talk about it just a little bit more. We want to improve the district processes. Every process, we'll be partnering with every district department, and then we'll also bring in some schools, but literally, how can we make everything better as far as efficiency? And then also too, I think a student information system is a chance for us to really build relationships with other district departments. I think some of the things that will be important is that we'll be reaching out to our partners in ESE, ELL, MTSS. I go down a long list of people where we will bring them in. We have a very standard, I've recently gone through the conversion about 1.5 years ago, so I know their project plan. And their project plan basically brings them in, takes a look at their existing processes, shows them how it work in Focus, and then we start in a design phase to what makes the most sense for our people. And then more importantly, documenting all that and then thoroughly training it. And then something that is big in my heart is kind of an internal wheel of training. Like, I will say this, if you've ever gone through a student information system conversion, the training's really good at first, but if you didn't make the first year, you might have got missed, if you get what I'm saying. And so we would be making training that would repeat year to year to year, if you get what I'm saying, because there's always a new person, and the hardest thing to figure something out is just sitting next to a buddy trying to figure it out, right? Like, to some extent. So that would be something that we would do. And then of course, obviously the data piece, the customizable reports. This is going to be slightly the scariest part. So what I'm going to do is we have a sandbox for Focus, so I'm just going to show you a couple of things just to kind of sort of prove that we're not just talking about sort of these high theories to some extent. So this is Focus right here, and so one of the things that I want to talk about is the registration process real quick. And so if we go to, let's say we were to enroll a student. Now, one thing that Focus works pretty easily on is that there's a drop-down menu right here. And so in the registration process, the parent fills out a form, and that's still there, but there is an applicant school. Schools can just basically, at that particular point, if you've got the right address zoning, pick up their student from an applicant school. So this actually sort of simplifies the process. You may have heard of the word the queue to some extent. If you have, you know. If you don't, you don't know. But anyway, regardless, this is a little bit more straightforward. This is a little bit more straightforward than that. It's just the applicant school. But let's say we go ahead and pick on a student for a second. Not pick on a student, but pick a student. And so one of the things that you would want is that, like, again, if you have, and this doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is definitely a big deal. If we go to the immunizations tab, I'm going to pick on that for a minute, right? So this immunizations data that has to get entered is extremely complicated. If we scroll down for a second, Let's see if we see any immunization. This doesn't necessarily have it, but if it did, like you would see all these fields right here as far as vaccination, exemption, like there's just a bunch of data entry. And actually for every immunization, which there's quite a few of them by the 7th grade, it's just like probably like 8-10 fields or something like that. And so those are people that have to enter that currently. But one of the things that's great about Focus is that because they are all around the state, they have a direct integration with Florida Shots. Then you just click the button, it matches the kid, and it brings the data over. And if you've ever worked in this, that one step for every student that registered literally saved 10 to 15 minutes. And we know we're getting it from a trusted source. And again, this is one of those, just an example, one of those examples that we can save time, and then you multiply that time out, then you are definitely making people's lives easier, right? And so that is one of the things. They also have a faster integration, and I kind of told you about the focus-to-focus integration that may be coming. And then probably one of the last things that I guess I would talk about is that, like, it's an optional module, and at some particular point, like we would maybe get there, it's not terribly expensive, but they also do have a school choice module that would allow you to run your lotteries, do your SPRs, and take care of all that up front. So when you talk about that controlled open enrollment environment, that would be a situation very quickly to where we could manage that in Focus. Right now, it's kind of sort of independent systems. I think it's a spinner somewhere or something like that, just because, and that's typical for a lot of districts that have a more old school product, right, like, or a process, but we could do it within the student information system, which would be good, and then we could see, you know, like, you would have like real seat counts, all that stuff updated as you place students. Real fast, I'll show you just a little bit about the easy scheduling piece. So, elementary scheduling is an interesting art, if you've ever seen it. It's a lot of times done on, I used to kid, tarot cards, but really like note cards or something like that. Basically what happens is that you take the note cards and then you kind of sort of process them out. There's never really been an elementary scheduler, but if there was an elementary scheduler, it'd be kind of a marvelous thing. Now this still gives you the ability to place students with individual teachers. It's not overriding you or anything like that. But in this particular case, it allows you to, by all these different, and what it's achieving or attempting to achieve is just the balancing of the classes, right? And so one of the things that's neat is that if you scroll over to the right, you can actually see the balancing with test scores once test scores are in there. And so this is just a very, very fast way to place students. You can drag and drop students over into different classes, and these are kids that we would have already placed. But with one click real fast, we can go ahead and at the very top, we can optimize. And it just scheduled those students while giving me a readout of what that is. And there are rules that you can set in. I will tell you, this speeds up the elementary scheduling process considerably. And also allows you, even if you are hand placing, to see what the balance of your classes are. So that's existed in sort of secondary land for a while, never in elementary before. So again, another process improvement that allows us to get schedules done faster. One other thing real fast too, in a high school, if you've ever seen a high school will actually bring all their students in, and they will go in and they will basically do requests. They'll sit at a computer and type in their request. Some of our schools right now are not doing that. They're doing Google Forms where counselors are actually translating those requests into the system to do the scheduling, because that's how it's kind of built. This blows a lot of people away if you've been in secondary scheduling, because it allows you, usually if you're in English 1 standard, you're going to English 2 standard, unless there's an exemption. And so this allows you to set rules, and then with one click, get up to 40 to 45% of your student request finished. Because most of it is rule-based, and you're bringing them in the lab to put in things that you already know they're going to go into, if you get what I'm saying. Then when they go into the lab, their selection is locked down and they only pick like their electives or the other things. I'm going to tell you, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it would save probably 10 to 15 hours on the counselor to not have to like manually process those, if you get what I'm saying. So that is kind of a big deal. And then the last thing that I would talk is, or the last two things real fast I'll hit on, is the reports. So real fast, we talked about that need to be able to get data. And so what's great about this is kind of a return to the classics, which is the advanced report. We can search for any student that we want, but down here, if we wanted to, like just for all the 11th graders, we could check boxes. And this gets incredibly detailed if we wanted it. But to build a report, if we want a report with our name on it, and then maybe the student ID, we just drag and drop or click the stuff over. This is that self-service reporting function that I'm talking about to inform decisions that would be very, very powerful if it got into our administrators' hands and other teachers, anybody, right? And so that makes it very, very fast for us to be able to run it. This is not a great example of a field, but one of the things that's good is that if you've ever entered data, sometimes you have to go student to student and it takes a long time. Here, I can actually just build a report, change the data, hit the save button, and then I fixed it all. And so it allows data cleanup to happen very fast. And these are just tools that currently we don't really have in our current system. And so, as you can see, that's it. A real fast view real quick for a teacher, because there are more teachers than there are any other group. And so that's an important thing for us to note. And so for teachers, one of the things that we can do is there's an easy way to take attendance. Most grade books are kind of the same, but I did want to show you a couple of features that sort of stand out in this grade book. So if we go, you'll pick a...
I'm going to do the high school one.
That's fine. So one of the things that we encourage our teachers to do a lot of times is we encourage our teachers to grade by rubric. But if you've ever had to actually score it by rubric electronically, it's kind of hard to do. And so one of the things that's really, really neat is that teachers can build the rubric they want in this grade book. And then when they go to grade it, all they have to do is there's a table here which looks just like a rubric, and they just go boom, 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 boom. And because they've already set up the points, it grades it for them. Do you see what I'm saying? And so this is kind of a real easy way for us to get like something that's kind of complicated for teachers to do. And I will tell you this, it's the same story I tell all the time. I think I've told it for like 10 or 15 years. So if you've ever graded papers, it's a great job, right? And so when you grade papers, there's a lot of math that goes on and everything like that. And we talk about saving people time. So do you know what I mean when I talk about the plastic slidey thing?
Yes.
Everybody knows what the plastic slidey thing is, right? It's called Easy Grader Pro or whatever, or something like that. But it's the plastic slide thing, I don't really know. So that's a lot of extra work, right? Because maybe I gave 14 questions or something like that. Well, here what I can do is that I can have an assignment for 14 questions, and I can do points or percent, but that means I have to break that thing out, right? Here what I can do is just do questions incorrect. And so if I just put -2, I put it in there, and then it will go in and grade it for me, if you get what I'm saying. And so that's very, very fast. Again, I know it doesn't sound like much, but if you're a teacher trying to enter this stuff quick, it saves them time, right? And so I think that's kind of an important thing. There's also other things like, again, useful reports, grade reports, and easy communication and all those things. Go back to the presentation because it ran a little bit long, which is not a surprise with me. You know what I mean? That's about right. So let's talk a little bit about what the timeline could potentially look like, right? Now, there's a couple of asterisks here, but what we would look to do, potentially, is we would look to procure it in the next little bit so we could get started. And so one of the first things that you have to do in these projects is there is a bunch of data migration. We have a big, huge chunk of data, right? The potential advantage would be because we were on focus up until 6 years ago, that data's conversion would speed up considerably because it's going basically from a state reported site, a snapshot site, or a survey site. So that would speed us up a little bit. If we were coming just straight over, it might be like 20 years of data that had to move over. We think we have a more limited data set, whatever's happened in the last 6 years. Since the other district on our current student information system just recently left, we would have access potentially to some of those programs that would help us pull the data out, right? And so that would speed it up a little bit too, so that would be a possibility. But we would start moving data over. We would start meeting with the business process owner. That's a nerdy term for our district departments. We would identify them, start meeting with them, talking about what they want. And then from November to January, we would start validating the data, making sure that it comes over right, because you got to balance GPAs. Lord have mercy on your soul if you get valedictorian or salutatorian wrong. I was a senior sponsor for a lot of years, so I know that's important. The data migration, we would redefine the processes, And then we would start training scheduling teams. And we could build potentially the IEP, or we could go to peer. That's a different conversation for a different time. But regardless, however that would work, we would either have our existing IEP built in Focus or look at a different option. Then the testing documentation and training. And then what we would start doing is that we would actually start scheduling people in February. And so the good news is they would have access to those tools for a July 1 go live. We would start training teachers and of course other folks and all these different processes, and then we would get the integration turned on. And then, take a deep breath, we would go live around July 1 or so in Focus, and then we'd figure out the summer surveys, and then of course we'd come back into pre-planning. Because, again, I would say this, is that the last district that just left our current student information system, they were in a little bit of an interesting spot, but they did a 6.5-month conversion. And according to the calls that I made yesterday, they were relatively happy. Now, I will say they may be coming from a different place than we were to some extent. We're a little more established than they were, if you get what I'm saying. That would make me nervous. That makes me kind of break out in sweats just thinking about 6.5 months anyway. But I do think because we have the legacy of being on it before, that there is a little bit of an advantage. Of course, we're going to assume that nobody's been trained on it and trained it like it's the first day. But because we do feel like there's a little bit of muscle memory that would kick in there and other things, that we do feel like there would be an advantage. And so that would be the timeline for the project. That was a lot. You're probably like, I'm never inviting this guy to another meeting.
I will say this, the very first conversation I had with Mr. Broski was an overwhelming amount of people when he ran was, I hate Synergy, I want Focus back. So your teachers had given us feedback immediately that they wanted this program back. So that was like quite literally one of the very first conversations I had with Mr. Frost.
And I want to tell you, so you put I'm a teacher.
So we'll fist bump later.
Focus, I did Focus for years, and there's a couple things I want to tell you. So, first of all, I saw the Focus screen, and I said to myself, it's so weird. Beautiful. It was just so beautiful to my eyes, because I'm going to tell you, and this is not mean to be offensive to anyone, but from a teacher's perspective, when we switched from Focus, I was teaching, and I did my summer training, a lot of teachers didn't, to go to Synergy. It was disastrous. There were whole schools that teachers didn't know how to do anything. Ms. Skipper's right about Focus. The conversion from Synergy to Focus was one of the, and I've converted from other ones even earlier in my career, right? That was the worst for me and many people to go to Synergy. And especially when you were talking about the ESC population, 504, it wasn't populated, I don't know how long it took us, or even if it's finished now, it wasn't populated for so long that everybody had to do extra work for everything. So when I saw Focus, there was just a party at my house because it is preferred. And I also want to say, I saw it and I remember it. So anybody who's been here more than 5 years is going to know how to do Focus. So it's going to be a much easier transition, so.
And because this is your third one, does that mean we save money on some of these people coming out and training us?
Well, you saved money already because of my first one. It's a very honorable question, but at the same time, like, I feel like that turnip is 2D at this point. I've smashed it pretty good.
I just wanted to see.
Yeah.
So we didn't put the agenda item, but based on the reaction of the board, we're gonna have the agenda item on there so that we can have a vote at the next meeting, so we can move the project forward. You can see it's a very doable timeline. And the thing about Dwayne is now I've officially hired Dwayne more than any other person back several times. In fact, I did get a text from Dr. McDonald, who had the former
He did have the
directory.
record. He did have the record.
But I now have
That's
the record.
true.
Bring it back again. The thing I would say about Dwayne and his team is Dwayne's not only wicked smart, but the ability to communicate is a very big piece of that. You can just tell, entertaining in his presentation and all of that, easy to understand and all of that, so we expect big things. In the era of funding that we're at, I highly recommend that we move to a new system in order to ensure that we maximize our funding.
And it's not just a funding thing, I mean, it's obviously a better product. The whole point of computers was to save everybody time, and we seem to get buried in, yes, you're a great communicator, we appreciate that. I married one, and communication sometimes, you know, we're up here.
Listen, I can be a nerd too, so, you know.
And I've been through 2 conversions, so I can tell, but yeah, wouldn't want to deal with number 3.
Yeah, it's a chore, but
But thank you.
for the right people.
I mean, you can tell, you obviously know what you're doing. We appreciate
Well,
that.
thank you.
And I just want to emphasize though, since we have so many changes coming from the district right now, especially with our Apogee and our technology, they're positive changes and we have really good feedback, and I don't really think that you're going to have to explain yourself with this one much with a lot of our teachers, but can we just make sure that we communicate the reasons why we're switching back, how it's going to save us money and all the positives, so that people understand that we're not just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah, I think you hit a very, very key part. You will see probably a series once we get this, if this goes through and passes, as I sound like it might. I'm big on kickoffs, I'm big on the communication, I'm big on identifying stakeholder groups, because to be honest with you, we're just all in it together. I will tell you this, there's not another system that you'll launch, well, there are a couple, but like this is one that touches everybody, like period. Like it's just kind of, I'm trying to think, there's some that might, but like the parents are gonna log into a portal the first, there's everybody, right? And so communicating with those groups, over communicating with those groups is super important to us. And I would be wrong, like the one thing that I'm very big on is there's this thing called the hype cycle where you get real hyped up and then reality sets in a little. Conversions can be a little tricky, right? Like they're not always like completely the easiest things ever. But with that said, I think we have every advantage, and I think if people know that we're really doing it in their best interest, I expect there to be a very decent response to it. But that communication is what makes that happen. It won't just happen in a silo, if you get what I'm saying. So I 100% agree. And we would put together a communication plan, like there's kind of already one.
Okay.
And once they get in there, parents loved it. Parents loved Focus back in the day.
Yeah.
You know? So once they get in there, it's just gonna be nothing.
I think with any system, you will find some hidden advocates once you change, right? Because change is change, right? And I want to be very clear too, this is something that's just near and dear to my heart. That team has poured their heart and soul into this. And so I do want to be very, very respectful of their work, because I think it's important to know that this is, that particular product launched during a pandemic. It was just a different time, right?
Yeah.
But as we are sitting here in 2025, right, and we're considering, it's just Florida is mostly Focus, and that seems like the logical place to be. And so, but that team over there is going to deliver you a great conversion.
There's no further questions, comments? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate you.
I know we have another meeting afterwards, so I wanted to do our school board discussion real quick, and then if it's okay, Mr. Grosky, if you don't have any specific things you want to talk about as far as the agenda, can we just call you? And
Yeah, I only have one item on the agenda, but go ahead.
okay. All right, so Ms. Gilhausen will start. Do you have anything? Ms. Clark?
I have nothing to speak this long. I can wait.
Well, no, I mean, we're.
No, I'm
if you have
fine.
some. Okay. Mr. Alvera, do you have anything that you want to like discuss, bring to an agenda, anything like that?
Yeah, I have a question. Now because decided, that we went to the 1.5 mile to 2 mile radius, a few parents, not many of them, but a few parents brought a concern to me about the way the distance is measured. Because they measure it from the driveway to the school, and the safe distance for some of those kids is more than 2 miles. And I was wondering if we can do something about that, because the kid's not gonna go just across the street right in front of the driveway, example. They need to go to the crosswalk or the cross guard. And then measuring that distance, the parents are saying that that distance is more than 2 miles. Can we consider getting those children on the bus?
I think that they are, and I don't want to overstep or speak, but I know that they are looking at multiple options right now, how they're measuring, they're reassessing places like 218, and I know, I actually just spoke to Mr. Broski about this, going and speaking to our county and even CCSO to make sure that we have the infrastructure to start supporting these walkers. And just kind of getting everybody on the same page, because I think what people don't realize is your crossing guards come from CCSO, your sidewalks and crossing areas come from your county, and your schools come from your schools, right? You know, so it's multiple different people, organizations in one. So I think this week there was further discussion on our transportation side, and like you spoke about today, they're reassessing things, all the way around, and doing courtesy riders and figuring that out, especially since our numbers have.
I brought it to your attention because I think it's a fair question.
No, it is.
It's
yeah.
not a driving distance, it's a walking distance. If it's a walking distance, it should be a safe walking distance.
Right, and I know that there was a, just as an example, we did a walking distance, and an individual had to cut through private property to be able to even get to his house because it was considered a walking and not a drivable. So this individual is having to ask a citizen who knows if they're kind, nice, or whatever, to cut through. And so there's been circumstances like that, and I think those are part of the bumps that they're trying to overcome. And I think they're trying to work those out, so.
If I can, if you would direct any of them, you can send me the email if you want with their address, and transportation will look at those student addresses individually and make sure that the program didn't, make a mistake or pull them out, incorrectly. But yeah, I encourage them to also submit a form or a courtesy rider. We're gonna do everything we can to get everybody, transportation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted you guys to have a copy of this, real quick. It's probably around the email address. I just want them to see the page.
Yep.
Thank you. So Mr. Broski's helping. I know you, every board member received maybe a dozen emails about our counseling policy. And a lot of the concerns in the counseling policy, there's one section when you guys get these in front of you. This is our policy. And basically, it doesn't have a lot of words in it. So remember that mental health counseling is in a separate policy, all right? So the school counseling portion, if you look at A, assist students in academic advisement and planning to achieve their optimum growth. We understand what that is. B, aid students in identifying options and making choices in career, vocational, and post-secondary education. We all get that, it's just pretty straightforward. And D, supports the provision of the resiliency education, which is our First Lady DeSantis's drive, and then civic and character education and life skills education. We're required to show so many videos on topics as they age through the system, like sex trafficking and abusive drugs and alcohol. So all of that. What the parents were concerned about, if you look at C, is something that says provide responsive mental health counseling services to students. And so you see the words mental health and you see responsive. So on Sunday I talked to a group of people for about 4 hours to include counselors, not necessarily school counselors. I just wanted to know in general, when we place someone with a master's degree, that's their profession. We're not the experts in that. And we had a conversation about what responsive mental health counseling is. And if you were to go to the internet, responsive mental health counseling by a school counselor providing immediate short-term support to students experiencing crisis, personal problems, behavior issues that disrupt the learning and well-being. The concern by this group of people, and even myself when I sat down and started really looking at examples of responsive mental health counseling, is things like drug abuse. There are things that school counselors experience inevitably, right? And these folks were concerned with parental permission. So if your child did have, let's say, a drug problem, I'm going to say, first of all, 100%, that in the 20 years that I was teaching, I never not heard of a counselor doing the right thing when it comes to this. They always seek a plan that is best for that student and include parents. With the exception if you have to do, you think a student is being threatened or abused, and that's a mandatory report. So we can't just simply say, in this category of responsive mental health counseling, they always have to call a parent. It doesn't work like that, right? And so then I called Mr. Broski, who, my question to him exactly was this: can you provide some information on, do we have protocols when it comes to mental health responses, the responsive mental health counseling? Is there a list of things that they can do? Are there some warnings of what they don't do? Because part of what they do is, when they come across a situation, is referrals and recommendations to help parents seek out the help that they need for their student, right? And so Mr. Broski has someone that could speak to us just for a moment about the protocols we have to make sure that parents are in the loop when it needs to be. And then after that, I would ask if we agree that we add legislation 1002.20 and 1014.04, which is a link to the rules for informing parents, to keep parents in the loop.
So I would just add this, the Neola policy that you have in front of you is based off of the standard number that you see up there, FAC 6A 5.09. The wording, responsive mental health counseling services, is from that very document. So it's purely, Neola looked at the state Board of Education rule. The rule uses the term responsive mental health counselor, so that's not something that is unique to Clay County. This is a statewide sort of thing. And I think Ms. Hanson did a great job of explaining all of that.
I just have a quick question. So even with this, they have a license, correct? Our mental health counselors have a license, right?
Mental health
Through the
counselors
state?
would have a license.
Right, so they would still have to practice within their scope. So whatever their scope
Right.
states, they couldn't.
In addition to that, we're under the parental rights.
Right.
So they would have to follow that protocol in addition, so.
Okay,
in
so they have
general-
two different ones that they have to follow by state, because they can't, like as a nurse, I can't just go prescribe medication. So they would have to stay in their scope, and then they also have to look at the legislation for parental rights as well.
Correct.
Okay. that's what I
And
just wanted to-
we actually contract out for mental health services, correct?
We do have, Clay Behavioral does for some services, but those services would all be with parent permission
Right,
for those services.
Well, I
I meant
think the key there
counseling.
too is that it's responsive, so it's, situationally crisis oriented. It's
Right.
not just pulling whoever wants to come see the counselor in for the day.
Correct.
So it's responsive and it's, like you read, short term. So it's not, ongoing counseling services for a student at a school.
Correct. So this is Erin Cologne, she's got lead counselors, and you know Kelly Guilfoyle, so go ahead, take it away.
Hi, I'm Erin Cologne. I am one of the school counseling specialists for the district. So I just wanted to say thanks for having me and being willing to kind of talk through this with me. So I think everything that you brought up and said about school counselors and kind of how we operate in schools is absolutely correct. The role of a school counselor is a little bit different than that of a mental health.
I meant to say counselor, I didn't mean to say mental health, I
Yes, so
meant counselor, sorry.
Our school counselors are certified, so they have a Florida teaching certificate, but we don't have licenses like some social workers or mental health counselors. But we still have our ethical guidelines as well. And absolutely, so when we talk about like the variety of services, specifically that responsive mental health, it is, like Ms. Gillhausen, you were saying, like responding to students' needs in the moment. Sometimes that does involve, like if a student is having suicidal ideation, we may need to kind of We have policies and procedures that we follow for that to make sure that, to kind of assess for risk and then how we notify parents about that, absolutely. And all of our guiding documents for all of our school counselors, we fundamentally believe in parents' rights to be the guiding voice in their child's lives, and we advocate for students to talk anything that they talk with their school counselor about to share with their parents as well. And then we we always follow up with parents. Sometimes that's via like inputting the information into currently Synergy, but most often it's through a phone call if there's any cause for any sort of concern or just a general disruption to their academic learning. But
And as a high school teacher, I just want to clear up that you would send a high school student there for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
Failing a class, failing the year, not getting prepared for a test, teacher knows you went from an F to a 0, can't get a hold of parents. So like 95% of the work, especially as kids get older, it's a little different in elementary school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of what we just read in the policy occurs once they get into high school, especially career and academic counseling. And I think what you said is perfect. So really the concern is that there's a broad spectrum. We have like a slice of society, right? They wanted to make sure it wasn't subjective. And through my investigating, I found out it's very objective, that you have guidance for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And protocols.
absolutely.
And they can always, if they're unsure of something, I'm sure there's a line for them.
Yes, they can call, there's 2 district specialists for the school counselors, so I primarily work with our elementary school counselors, and then Tabitha Johnson works with secondary, and we consult all the time. Every day, we're on the phone or emailing back and forth if they have a question. We also have additional staff within climate and culture for those more like specific crisis scenarios that they can consult with.
So you do have a guiding document, like if the child is suicidal, if.
Yes.
And then if there's any question, you're saying that people always take a note in Synergy.
Yes.
I remember doing that as a teacher. And call parents
Yes.
when there's an issue. And mind you, it's also a second line of defense, because part of my, I think, retraining what we think about school counselors is the fact that teachers know too already. There's a reason most of the time the student is there with the counselor, and teachers have tried to contact when students are having issues as well. So it's by no means, no one's trying to bypass parents or keep secrets, especially because we do really care about our students at all levels. And I think it just makes sense that if someone wanted to know the rules for parental rights, that we put the actual law there to make sure that kind of like, you know, make that an important part in the policy as well.
And I think it's important to draw the distinction between a school counselor and a licensed mental health counselor. They are
Yes.
not the same. And it's a very different scope of practice and very different service that we're
Yes.
doing at school versus what people tend to think of when they think of seeing a counselor.
Yes. Absolutely. Did you need me to elaborate on that? Because I thought that was great. Okay.
All right, thank
Do you have any
you.
other questions for me?
No, just thanks for sharing.
Thank you very much.
Anything further, Ms. Hanson?
No, if we can get consensus maybe, or nod our heads.
Well, it'll be on the,
So
it'll be on the
Are gonna
agenda,
add
so
it?
we-
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll just vote on it.
Perfect, that's
Yep.
perfect, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
I do need consensus if Ms., okay, well, I was going to ask our lawyer if we could do a policy letter just to clear up some do's and don'ts for our booster clubs, as far as fundraising and the things that they can and cannot do. I know I was gonna see if Neola had a policy for that, but in the meantime, if we could, Mr. Blocker said something about a policy letter so that, you know, football season's here, sports are gearing up, that they can do what they need to do, in their realm of things, if you will.
Right, absolutely. I know the question pertained mostly to bingos and raffles, I think was the question posed. The requirements on bingos and raffles, there's length of time, it has to be a 501c3, has to be active for a certain amount of time, usually 3 to 4 years, depending on bingo and raffle. There's small distinctions between the two. Then there's also the purpose requirement of what the funds are being raised for. Education is one of them. We'll get a policy letter out to the board regarding what do's and don'ts you can for the boosters. I don't know. I'll have to see the length of time, what entity it's filed as, each booster club is filed as, and go from there. I know there are other districts that do it for their schools through an associated 501c3 with the schools, and they advertise those bingos or raffles, not typically on school grounds. I don't think those raffles and bingos to be held on school grounds. But we can get a policy letter out to the board and provide some clarification.
So they have to, so I didn't know, he didn't mention the year. So if they don't have a booster already established, they're gonna have to wait 4 years to be able to do a raffle?
I believe statute's 3 or 4 years. It's been a few weeks since I looked at that particular statute. It's 3 or 4 years before bingos and raffles. You can ask our legislator about the reasoning for that, but those are just the
You
statute
can
says.
include the detail in the.
Exactly.
Okay, and get clarification of that.
There's just so much legislation.
There is, and reasons behind that. But if we can see about all of that, that would be great. So do we need consensus for you to be able to do that, or do you just bring it to us and we vote on it? How does that?
Right, if you want policy, if you want a legal opinion, you can just ask.
Policy letter is like a legal opinion.
Right.
He's gonna say,
Right,
this is what you
okay.
can or can't do.
Okay,
So it's just advisement to the board, there's
Okay.
nothing to vote on.
okay, I didn't know if I needed to give you consensus to do that or whatever. Okay.
You can just ask, and on any topic, I can provide you
Can
a legal
we
opinion.
get one of those letters, and then can we have it sent out to principals as well, or however
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Brodsky wants to direct?
We'll send it to the board and Mr. Brodsky, and he can disseminate as to school principals and athletic directors as needed from there.
Okay, Mr. Brodsky?
Sure.
I also had one
Sure.
consent agenda question for you when
Sure.
you're done. Oh, real quick, I could.
Okay?
So when we get a bond and we build the buildings, it looks like we came in under budget on, was it the Oak Leaf one that was in here? So I had somebody ask me, when we bonded the $36 million, what happens when you come in under budget
We
to the
would-
money?
Yeah, so we would pay that back to the bond to reduce the expenditure on it.
Thank you so much.
So I only have one thing, you ever have something that's a lot of work, and then I'm gonna reduce it down to 2 minutes or less, because we're late for the next meeting. So all of the usual stuff's in here, if you got any questions, please. These books here are school improvement plans. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that all of the success that you see is a lot of work behind the scenes. It's all detailed within these binders that you see here. We do it a little differently than some districts will require every school to do a school improvement plan, and that there's a very strict protocol for how that's done. In addition, we go out and we do what's called school improvement walks, which we go out there and actually go out to those classrooms within there to ensure those things are done. There's a whole data analysis piece broken up into subgroups of students because students are measured in different ways. I summarize like hundreds of hours of work in 2 minutes, but this is a really important thing because I know a lot of times you see me with a chart saying, oh, look, our district is doing, this is the vehicle by which that happens. So it's very, very important, but I know we're late for the next meeting, so thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? School board attorney comments?
No comments from the school board attorney's office.
All right, Mr. Alvaro, any school board comments? Ms. Hanson? Ms. Bell? Ms. Clark? All right, with that, we are going to recess, and the next meeting is closed to the public, the next several meetings, so we'll recess this time.